I'm Cynthia James, and this network is about changing lives one woman at a time.
Hello and welcome to Women Awakening. I'm your host, Cynthia James, and I get the honor of bringing a fabulous woman to you every week. Women who have said yes to their lives, who've stepped into their greatness, who've taken charge, and they act as way showers for us to remind us that we are in a field of infinite possibilities where success is available. And so I'm thrilled that I get to do this. We're on Spotify and iHeart, iTunes, Spreaker. We're on Amazon and we're on video on YouTube. Women Awakening, Cynthia James. Go find us, sign up, and come back and meet a fabulous woman every week. So this woman that I'm going to introduce you to was introduced to me by a friend in New York. And the moment I met her, it was like an instant love affair. And so I'm very excited to introduce you to her. Marla Wynn Ginsberg. What it says in her bio is what began with like a poorly cast session of Project Runway just over 14 years ago, helmed by an industry neophyte who could barely thread a needle, has evolved into Marla Wynn, a multi-million-dollar apparel brand. We're going to talk about that. But Marla spent 20 years behind the camera as one of the highest-ranking female television executives in Europe. She was based in Paris. She produced and financed some of the largest-running international co-productions in television history, Highlander, La Femme Nikita. She was also known for the unique financial model she created for producing scripted television series without deficit financing, and it's become an industry standard. We're going to talk about what happened next to her because it was in 2008 that there was a major shift. But since that major shift, she reinvented herself and has created this amazing global lifestyle brand with retail sales in excess of $70 million. Okay, I'm so happy to see you.
Hey, you. Good to see you too. It's so weird, when I sit, because you've been in this room with me.
I have.
So it's like, it's so weird. And I got to figure out, do I have to get headphones like that? Or do I just have these creepy white things hang out of my ears when I do podcasts?
I think you get to choose. I mean, you look good.
I kind of like them, though. They make you look very, organized and into it. So I'm glad to be here with you, too. It's really great to see you.
Well, Marla, I really, to have reached the pinnacle of being a highly successful entertainment executive, and then to have your life flip. What happened in 2008?
Oh, pretty much what's happening right now to so many of us now. We were on, there was the economic crash, the real estate bust, of which I owned some real estate within the bust. The stock market crashed. I had two kids who annoyingly wanted to eat. And I was just like, my portfolio was in the toilet. My house was like, the value of my house slid down the mountain it was built on. And I was a single mom with two kids and I was scared to death. But I figured, it'll be it can't all go. I was wrong. It can. And so in 2007, the writer's strike happened, right? Started around, I think, October, November. And that was kind of like, I had a feeling that it was going to be a long haul, just as I feel the one we're going through right now will be a long haul. And I thought, I'm living in a city that eats its young, let alone its menopausal. And I figured that finding a post-strike opportunity would be sort of like finding a natural blonde in Beverly Hills, said the woman who does not have naturally blonde hair. And, I kind of felt the writing on the wall. I was in my 50s, and it really is an industry that eats its young. So for reasons in retrospect that may be early signs of insanity, I went out and bought a sewing machine that I didn't know how to thread. And I didn't buy just a little simple Singer sewer machine. I bought a serger because I thought, oh, this will be so much easier because I can finish things this way and blah, blah, blah. Oh my goodness. It was sort of like saying I want to play the guitar, so you buy a 12 string to start out with. Big mistake. I get the bobbins and the tension, and I get like one of the bobbins in there, and I get it threaded, and then I do the next one, and then okay, now they're all in there, and I'd hit the pedal, and when I must have spent 6 weeks, like pathetic. So basically, what I did in '08 is I started to Google things. How to thread a sewing machine was the first one. The next one was how to make a pattern, how to sew, how to, almost everything you want to learn is on Google. If you want to be a brain surgeon or a rocket scientist or a lawyer, like, please do go to university. But if you want to do what I do, you know what? Everything that you want to learn is out there if you just read about it. It's just you've got to form that sort of discipline. And in 2008, I had 2 kids. The world was changing, much like it is right now. What I went through is so relevant to today with all the challenges we face. There's slightly different challenges, but we may be looking at a recession. The cost of money's gone way up. Things are kind of topsy-turvy in our world. And by the way, I find myself once again pivoting to respond to the market changes that are going on that have to do with the industry that I'm in. But in 2008, I was just a scared single mom of 2 kids. And I literally bought a sewing machine and just got up every morning. And instead of like reorganizing my underwear drawer, or some kind of task around the house, I just did the work. It is amazing in life. If you do the work, it works. Now,
Yeah.
I also had a lot of luck. So let's not exclude Lady Luck from the girls in this conversation,
Yeah, but okay. You didn't know how to sew.
No.
What is it in you that thought that going into
insanity? I told you, absolute insanity.
Yeah, but there was something pulling you to the point that you would go on Google and find out step by step how to do this thing that you didn't know how to do. And was it that you love clothes?
Well, I had 2 dreams. I wanted to be a talk show host.
Okay.
Because people would probably pay to shut me up. And I thought, well, maybe they'll just pay me to talk. However, no one was lining up for this offer. And the other thing is I always loved fashion. I lived in Paris for 20 years. We were friends with a lot of the people from LVMH and Dior and blah, blah, blah. And I got to go to the fashion shows and, across the way from the front row that I had, which was on the press side, was Anna Wintour and, everybody who was anybody. And I really loved fashion. And while I was living in Paris, I was always very interested in fashion and always felt like I had sort of my own sartorial sensibility. And I had asked Sidney Toledano, who was running Dior at the time and now runs the whole universe of everything in Paris. And he said, listen, next time there's a holiday, I'm going to take you to Dior. And I'm going to take you from the very top in those days, which was John Galliano's studio, all the way down to licensing so that you can understand what you're seeing when we do runway. Because I used to say to him, Sidney, nobody can wear those clothes. Nobody can afford those clothes. Why do you do this? And he explained it to me. And so I really seeded a passion for fashion, not only because I knew how to buy it and loved it, but also because I was very curious about how it was done, how the business worked. And I also knew that while we should never judge a book by its cover, we do. You go through the bookstore and you go, oh, nice cover. That lady looks nice. I think I'll read it. Or, ugh, I hate the cover. I'm not going to read it. We do. And we judge one another. We do it. We can say we don't. But I know you because I've seen you changing clothes and trying out my pieces. And when you would put on a piece that made you feel great, here's what happens. When you put on a piece that overwhelmed you or wasn't your style, that didn't happen. Clothes do make us feel a certain way. And that's one of the things I learned from Sydney. But I also learned sort of what the economics of the business are and how to start. And I just put it on a back burner and it was like my bucket list. Like, what will I do for my second act, right? Because it will come to an end.
Right.
I just didn't think it would come to an end quite that earlier. quite that soon or quite that radically, and I didn't know that it would involve losing every penny I had made and saved, and I had a few pennies. So in 2008, now, mind you, all these things I'm about to complain about are like privileged white people problems. So let's not, please don't, do not take out the violins. But here's what it looked like from my point of view. I can't even believe I'm going to say this. Here's what I did. I brought in a boarder into my house to pay for groceries. I drained the swimming pool. I got rid of my leased car and took back the used little Avalon Toyota that I had given my daughter for her 16th birthday because we were not going to be able to afford my car. I got rid of the gardener. I cut back everything. I learned how to make a meatloaf on Monday that turned to meatballs by Friday, or a marinara, because my portfolio was in the toilet. The house was in the toilet. I couldn't sell the house for what it was worth. It was an utter financial storm.
Well,
and so, that's what happened.
Well, okay. I mean, it makes sense to me. And, but this is really interesting because we live in this culture now, especially in this country, where there's not a lot of attention paid to looking great and dressing great. I mean, I see some outfits that I just want to go, really?
You made that choice this morning. You got up and went to your closet.
Yes.
When I go out, there are times when I feel like it's my public service. I'll look at someone and I'll think, you are beautiful. However, that's all wrong. And then I think, but okay, then the more spiritual side of me says, that's right for her. Get out of her face. Right. But there are these parts of me that's not so good that way. And I think, wow, it would be so easy for you to be so beautiful if you just made some simpler, different choices. I've never been a pretty girl. I've been an interesting looking woman, an unusual looking woman, but my looks were never my currency. My sense of humor was, and my brains. That was my currency. I didn't, get promoted because, oh, she's so cute.
Right.
I had to work my little tushy off. But I did realize that if I put it together, if I wrap the present, if I wrap the package a little better, I could walk into a room and control the narrative of prejudgment.
Yes.
That's what I learned that clothes do. Particularly when you're a woman in business, and particularly when you were a woman in business in the 80s and early 90s, when it was, hey, sweetheart, get me some coffee, It's like, sweetheart, me, you. But there was an early lesson. And there was a second lesson about it when I moved to Paris, and I would sit there, smoking a Gauloise and drinking an espresso and wearing what I thought was de rigueur. And they would speak to me in English. And I'd be like, how do you know? I'm doing everything French I could think of. And bit by bit, I learned what their statement is and how they walk into a room. And I started to pivot the way I look at things. And I really actually do believe at a time in my life where I was hoping I would be kind of giving back in a very different way, more philanthropically. I have learned over time that clothes do matter to us, particularly as we get older. And that if I do that thoughtfully, quality, and I offer a fair product at a fair price, I can feel very good about what I do. But it came about by accident, arrogance, and stupidity to think that I could actually build a business. I mean,
yeah, but here's the thing. First of all, you've got taste. But the other part is you started, from my perspective, designing for a certain kind of woman, correct?
Well, here's what I learned. So in my early 50s, like many of us, it was like, what is this? Right? And my mom did not talk to me about menopause. I just used to think we really should put her out of her misery because, her hormones were raging. She was out of her mind. We didn't understand. She was never comfortable, until I hit menopause. And when I hit menopause, my body started shifting. Things that I could wear before weren't fitting. It wasn't that I was gaining so much weight, is that I guess my closest relationship was to gravity, and things were shifting and changing. And having moved back to the US, I looked around and I said, okay, there's a few brands out there that I guess are supposed to be for me in my menopausal years. But I felt like, at best, a refugee from an artist colony. And I just felt like there was nothing that just because I'm losing my hormones doesn't mean I've lost my taste. And I felt that there was a need for sort of a cool, modern line of clothing at affordable prices that could fit everyone. So one of the things I did before inclusivity was a thing, I said, we're going to do from size 2 to 24 or 26, because clothes should fit everybody. And the older we get, things do shift and change. And I have to tell you, now that I'm 10 years out and then some, and my younger girlfriends are hitting menopause, I laugh my ample derriere off, because all of a sudden it's like a political cause and everybody's talking about menopause. And I'm like, so been there, done that. But even the most fashionable of my friend Stacey London, for example, known forever for telling America what to wear. She had a long-running 12-year series, and it was called What Not to Wear. And all of a sudden, everything that Stacey wants to wear has changed. Why? Because you do reach a point where it's like, that itches, that's too tight, that's not comfortable. There is so much to worry about in life. Clothes shouldn't be one of them. And I don't know about you, but I have found I want less. I want less stuff across the board.
Right.
And you've been to my home. I rent this house. I don't even have any stuff except my work. And, because the house came rented. And I thought I'd really miss my stuff. I came here for 6 months, and it's been 2.5, almost 3 years now. I miss some paintings. I miss every once in a while looking for that one pair of shoes that I remember is in a locker somewhere in New Jersey. I've never even been to New Jersey. It's just sitting there in storage. But yes, I started to make clothes for real women with real curves. We are not all a size 2 with perfect little shape. And so I wanted to create clothes for women who are perfectly imperfect.
Well, and they're beautiful and they're elegant. And, I want to talk about how you got on television because I got to tell you, I come to your house and, we were trying on clothes and the beautiful little belts that I love weren't there. So I went on television and got them.
Did you? You went and got them?
I did.
Oh, wait till you see. In October, I have 2 new ones coming. And this is here's where I get excited. I love that you love them. And when you learn what people like, you decide, I want to do that again, but differently. And it is such a creative job that I have.
Yes.
And I love that. And I love that you love something I made. It tickles me. Thank you.
It made me so happy.
Thank you for your purchase.
So, okay. So here you are, you're designing for these women, things are starting to pick up. How'd you get on television on a shopping network? I mean, did you know what you were doing?
First of all, I didn't even know there was such a thing. But what happened was, so back to how I started the company, I got financed by a guy in LA who owned a lot of Malibu real estate.
Right. And
so I had financing early on, and we had gotten into Nordstrom's and specialty stores across the country. I didn't know that QVC, HSN, all this stuff. And then when the real estate market tanked, he pulled out. He was like, I'm done, like overnight. I'm done. And I'm like, no. Really? He's like, yeah, really. So it was this kind of moment of panic of what to do next and how to do it. Well, as an executive in the television industry, I was represented by CAA and William Morris and Endeavor. And at the time I was with Endeavor or CAA. And I called up my agents and said, I need to come see you. I'd like an appointment. So I go to see them and they're thinking, she's got a film idea because in the middle of a writer's strike, she'll have a film idea, a TV show idea. No, I had a rack of clothes. Like, so humiliating. I'm going to these gorgeous offices and I'm schlepping a rack of clothes. And I think to myself, dear Lord, if you listen to me at all, because apparently you haven't lately, because things are not so good. If you listen to me, please do not allow me to run into any of the senior partners who are my peers at the stage. So finally they say, you can go up to the conference room. And so I come to the elevator, and the elevator door opens up, and who's there but Brian Lord, one of the owners of the agency. And he looks at me and he says, Marla Ginsberg, what are you doing with a rack of clothes at my agency? And I said, well, you know what, Ryan, I have 2 children. There's a writer's strike and you haven't done shit for me. So you know what? I'm moving into your 6th floor conference room. And so he laughed. I mean, I had to tell a joke. And needless to say, a number of the executives came upstairs to see what is she doing. And somebody was listening, because what CAA did for me was say, there's this thing called HSN, and we think you'd be great there. And I didn't know it was going to be the combination of a talk show and my dream to design. And that's exactly what it was. And I went to HSN with my agents and I showed them these clothes I had made in my garage, and they bought it. And I just celebrated 14 years on HSN.
Well, I love that. But here's the thing. Everything that we've been talking about is your ability to have an experience, look at what's happening, and then reinvent. I mean, just reinvent yourself, reinvent your process, reinvent. Why is reinvention important?
Well, first of all, I think without recognizing it, we all reinvent every day. You just had a knee replacement, okay?
Right.
That's a reinvention. You had to learn how to make that knee work properly again, how to incorporate that experience into your life. We are going through, no matter what side of the political spectrum you fall, we are in an upheaval, and we are having to reinvent social dialogue and how we communicate with people who may or may not agree with us, but do it with the generosity of spirit and open heart and open ears, right?
Right.
We were not a country divided. We're having to learn about that. We were not a country where women were losing their rights that we fought for. We're having to learn about that. And guess what else, girlfriend? As we age, and you and I think are about the same, I'm having to learn how to, like, I got these, you see these here?
Mm-hmm.
So these, I said to my doctor, what are age spots really? And he goes, they're like barnacles. So I'm like, thank you for that at like $600 a minute. I had 2 choices. I could go and take the risk of getting it lasered off or getting it changed or lifting this or that, whatever. I could go fight this process, or I could pivot with this process. And when I went on TV, one of my biggest pivots as a child of Hollywood, having really grown up in the entertainment industry, as in my career, was to make a conscious decision that I was going to do a pivot that's unexpected for someone on TV. Not going to get a facelift. I'm not going to have my barnacles removed. I don't wear a lot of, you've seen me with and without makeup. I did put on some mascara for you today. Okay. But I made a decision. One of the ways I'm going to pivot with age is go with the flow. I'm going to go with it. I'm going to age because my hands need to match my face. Yeah. And I'm afraid of anything that hurts. And there's enough in life that hurts. So that's a pivot. Aging is a pivot. Menopause is a pivot. The loss of a spouse or a divorce is a pivot. Your kids going on to leading their own lives. That's a pivot. Losing your parents is a pivot. Changing jobs. We just never really dialogued about it. We never thought about it. But to live successfully is a daily revision.
Yes, 100%. 100%. Well, what I love about you is that I know you're going through stuff. I know you've been through stuff, but that knowing within you that this is just part of this thing called life gets you to move to the next place and the next place and the next place, which is inspiring to me and so many others. How do people find you?
some offensive and some kindly. people, people can find me at info@marlawynn.com. They can find me on HSN here in the United States, QVC in the United Kingdom, TSC in Canada, and then we're also in Japan and Italy. And we also now have just a very growing, evolving business. But what I really do want to say, despite all the privilege and good fortune I've had, as we pivot, as we reinvent, it is work, but it's part of being alive.
Yes.
And one of the last things my 90-year-old father told me, because he was in hospice checking things. And he said to me, my advice to you is never stop. Keep the chase. Keep pursuing. And he didn't mean more money. He meant more happiness. Keep learning. And that's what, for me, these pivots and reinventions are about. I'm constantly learning new skill sets every day. It keeps me in the world. It keeps me alive. It keeps me engaged. And I think at 67, it keeps me young.
Yes, absolutely. Well, I ask the same last question of every guest.
What's that?
This show is called Women Awakening. What do you think is the most important thing about women waking up on the planet in this moment?
I think the first thing you have to realize is actually life isn't fair.
Hmm.
And you can spend every day being angry for what is lost, whether that's rights or health or age or the years, but that will not move you forward. So I think as we are learning that the road, one of the things I learned from the Forbes women was this path is long.
Yes.
This is a moment in time, but responding with anger will get us nowhere. Responding with some kindness, spirit of generosity, and true sisterhood. We weren't raised to learn to be on a team. And we have to be a sisterhood now. It cannot be lip service, because everything that the generation before me won so that I could have this life is being lost. And our jobs are to make sure that we teach our daughters. We need to teach them financial literacy. We need to teach them to truly support one another. We have to teach them that there is no room, no meeting that you will ever go into that doesn't have a door. And if anyone is ever inappropriate, you zip out that door. No job, no man, no nothing is worth it. But that support of sisterhood has to really mean something now more than ever. I don't know if that's an answer to your question.
Well, it's a beautiful answer. Thank you so much. It's great. Well, Marla, you inspire me. I'm so excited to be your friend, to get to come and try on your clothes. I thank you so much for being here.
And you have to come over because I got a whole new slew of stuff that's moving on out. So come over, come shopping. It's on me, and I'd love to see you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, ladies, I say the same thing to you every week in a different form. You have got no more time to keep fooling around, pretending you're small. No more time. This is the time for you to open your eyes, step out, take a risk, open your heart, open your mind, and create something new. The world is waiting for you, and we are here because we have a purpose. Thanks so much for being here, and I will see you next time. Much love.